Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're watching me from. Thank you for joining me in this live lecture today at Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. I'm sorry we have some technical issues. That was why we couldn't come on time. My name is Dr. Obioramba Iboeze. And today's date is Oye, Market Day, in the 9th month of the Igbo lunar calendar called Onwa Ana, or Onwa Ane, or Onwa Ala, depending on your dialect. And today's date in the Roman Catholic calendar is October 14, 2024. At Nkolo Mahadum, we always encourage you to use your naturally given common sense, which we call Ako Nuche, to evaluate issues, evaluate everything you see in life before you make a decision. And remember, all European media, most of the European, American, Russian, Chinese, or any other cultural media presents information the way it will benefit them, it will suit them. In the same way, Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University also presents information from Biafran and African perspectives, how it affects you and not how it affects other cultures. That is why it is very important that you go back to all our previous lectures, because those lectures were designed for you and presented from Biafran and African perspectives. Also, join our university. Join Nkolo Mahadum, because Nkolo Mahadum is an university where you learn. Subscribe, share, comment, like, and always, if you miss any of our lecture, always go back to enjoy that lecture and share it to your friends. Today's lecture, the title of today's lecture is Why Many Africans, that is both children and adults, protect colonial institutions and policies. Why do Africans, children and adults, protect colonial institutions and policies? One of the reasons is that because they were born in it. They were born inside these colonial institutions. And also, many are benefiting from the colonial institutions. Those are the two major reasons why Nkolo Mahadum can conclude as to why people are protecting these colonial institutions in our lands. What are the colonial institutions? They include the local governments you see today, the state governments, and the federal government. The federal means the countries, the artificial boundaries. So both the local government boundaries are all artificial boundaries. The state boundaries you see in most of the countries created by the colonial masters are all artificial. They're not natural. Okay? And other institutions which they have created include the judiciary system, education, security, then the religious institutions, churches and schools, also the banking and finance, the prison system. These are some of the colonial institutions that are in Africa and other foreign lands created by the colonial masters. The reason, another major reason why Africans protect these colonial institutions is because of ignorance. because they don't know. And even if they know, they think that to change now will be difficult. Why will changing now be difficult? So, because we are ignorant, should not stop us from changing to our own system. And note, according to Cambridge University Press, which was released on June 5th, 2014, after 400 years of the Europeans trading on the coastal lines of Africa, between 1878 to 1898, they went into African lands and partitioned and conquered virtually the entire African continent, except Liberia and Ethiopia. So apart from Liberia and Ethiopia, they conquered all the African continents. You think they conquered with wood? No, they conquered with weapons. A lot of wars was fought. They fought a lot of wars to subdue Africans to their control. And so you should also remember that in 1884, that famous 1884, when they partitioned Africa, there were 15 countries that partitioned Africa in 1884, but those that really championed the colonization of Africa includes Belgium, France, Germany, United Kingdom, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. These 7 countries spearheaded and championed the colonization of Africa. And from 1878 to 1960, which is about 82 years, from the time they started to conquer Africa, from 1878 to 1960, we have 82 years. You know, from some countries in Africa gained independence from 1958, some 1960s and upwards. Let's just use 1960. So from 1878 to 1960, it's about 82 years when they were directly ruling Africans with all these institutions that they set up, as mentioned above. And remember, from 1878 to 2024 is about 146 years, because after independence, they still use puppets, which they impose on Africans to continue using all these their imposed institutions on our people. And that is why it is very difficult. When you're talking to an African, he or she will be defending these colonial institutions because they were born in it. Their parents went through the same colonial system, institutions, and policies. And so it becomes very difficult for an African child to get away from all these imposed colonial institutions and structures in our land. That is the major thing we want you to know. That because the system has been endemic, the colonial institutions have been implanted long time ago and maintained by our own people, also imposed by the colonial masters up to these days. So, what are you going to tell a child born into this system that the parents also went through that system? What are you going to tell a child that was raised by a councillor or a local government chairman or a governor, commissioner, president, and ministers, House of Assembly members and their children? How about those in charge of the educational system, the foreign educational system? How about religion, the churches and the schools, which are one of the major brainwashing centers? What are you going to tell the children and their parents who are working in these institutions? That is why a child born in Africa is emasculated, is buried in these colonial institutions which are endemic in our society, in our land. That is why you see an African child, you see an African adult, I see an African father protecting the foreign colonial institutions imposed in our land. Because, for example, a judge or a lawyer that benefits from the colonial judicial system, how can you get him off of that system? How about those in charge of schools? How about those in charge of the prison? You know, the prison system, the colonial prison system we have, is not our culture. So what are you going to tell the people? So that is why it is very difficult. That is why our people are so much protecting the foreign colonial institutions in our land that they can even kill you or fight you to preserve that system. And we are saying at in colonial and Wisdom University that how about our own? How about our own system? The system we had in place before the arrival of the colonial masters. The way we organize our place, the families, the village system, the town system, the judiciary system, which is embedded in Nsani and Alo Hoshi. Our judicial system before the arrival of the Europeans is embedded in Nsani and Alo Hoshi, which are protective institutions. If you know that this will happen to you, when you do that, you never try to do it. And so when the Europeans came, they saw that we are very peaceful people. There's no crime because there's good government. Everybody have something to eat. Most people are satisfied. And so our own should be projected, should be promoted, should be promulgated from now onwards. Because the colonial institutions are failures. They have failed our people. We need to go back to our own. Our educational system is insipid. When you talk about it now, people will ask, what are you talking about? That they believe in the Western colonial education, which is teaching you theory upon theory without no practicality. Everything we are doing, everything our ancestors left for us, depends on practicality. And before we continue, we have to beg you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like our program, comment. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and other social media platforms. Because Nkoloma Wisdom University is here for you. We package this lecture so that you know that where we are currently going with the colonial institutions in our land is not helping us much. Before the arrival of the Europeans, we don't have no prison system. People are just ostracized or punished somehow and not go and put in a place. Who is going to be paying for those expenses? All this budget you have for prison, for military, for judiciary, for education, for the banking system and all whatnot in our society. It's not our way of life. They are colonial systems. And because we said we're going to be keeping the lectures short here, the takeaway from today's lecture is why Africans, children and adults, protect colonial policies, institutions and policies, is because we were born in it. It's because people are benefiting. It's because people are ignorant. That's what Nkola Mahadum wants you to know. That the local government you have, the state governments, the federal governments are artificial institutions. They have artificial boundaries, artificial creations put in by the colonial master, including their judiciary, their education, their security. Security includes military and police, which we don't have in our land before. Their Christianity, the churches and the schools, which are brainwashing centers in our land. Their banking and finance, which helps them to control your economy. Before they came, we are practicing physical economy. We practice physical economy which is based on production. But today, they printed this paper money to buy up all your gold, buy up all everything you produce with paper, without giving you back any physicality. And so you should remember that the Europeans were on the coastline for 400 years and decided to colonize, conquer Africa between 1878 to 1898. Within 20 years, they already conquered the whole of Africa, except Ethiopia and Liberia. And why did they decide to conquer you? To continue to exploit you and exploit you and exploit you and exploit you, and continues the exploitation up to today. And from 1878 to 1960, when many of the African countries started to gain independence, for 82 years, they were there introducing and putting in all their colonial structures in our land. And from 1878 to 2024, for 146 years, they have continued to do so with their puppets, which they are imposing on our people. And so the African child is not allowed to experience any other culture. Our own is being pushed back. Our own is being put in the backyard, in the back burner, instead of being in front. That is why Nkola Mahadum is proposing that we Africans should go back to our own way of organization of our communities, by families, by villages, by towns. Our judicial system in Igbo land is Nso Ani and Alo Oshin. Our banking is physical economy. Our education is insipid. And with good government, you don't need any military or police the way it's organized now, because everybody is satisfied. Everybody has something to eat. Everybody have houses. And when somebody offends, there's a way to punish that person. You don't have to go to put that person in prison, lock the person up. These are colonial systems. And Nkola Mahadum is saying that we Africans should go back to our own way of life, because that is what we give us identity, give us respect in the world. When we keep copying and copying and copying foreign institutions and policies, we are seen as slaves to the masters that has those institutions. And with this, we shall be bringing today's lecture to an end. Thank you very much for joining me, and have a great day. Thank you.